growled Stefano, stepping protectively in front of his partner, his hand shielding the blade. They locked eyes. Tension made the air between them contract. Katina shook her head, but she lowered her arm. "Back off, Stefano," she growled. "Now is not the time, and you know it. Call off your lover." Her gaze slid to Santo, who slowly regained his feet, his face twisted in fury. A shift and whisper of movement behind her, followed by a soft intake of breath, let her know Alessandro and Deborah, her own partners, had her back. "Now, why don't we all calm down?" Katina said, moving away before anyone could challenge her, making sure she was positioned between Santo, his knife, and Baroque. With deliberation she turned around and, drawing her own dagger, knelt down and began to cut Baroque's bindings. "What in the God's name are you doing?" shouted Santo. "Let's just slit his throat and get the hell out of here." Stefano had to prevent Santo from launching himself at Katina. Alessandro also blocked his way. Katina stopped, her knife held out like a sharp finger. "Not until I say so. In case you've forgotten, I am in charge." Her voice was low and deadly. "Anyhow, Santo, don't you think there's been enough death already today?" Her eyes bored into him. He gave a bark of laughter. "We had instructions to kill the Chandler, Katina. Remember?" Katina held his gaze a fraction longer before she resumed cutting Baroque's bonds. They were tight. "The elders did not say that Dante's death had to be so..." She searched for the right words. "Brutal. That particular bit was your contribution. Your only one as far as I'm concerned." Santo frowned and shot a look at Stefano, who shook his head. He laughed again. "You've become weak, Katina. Your last stint here in Serenissima sapped your courage. It's diluted your loyalties. You've developed affection for those who are our targets, and now you're protecting someone who was trying to interfere with our mission." He flipped his hand towards Baroque. "Why, he's nothing but a filthy spy." With a snort, he walked away. Out of the corner of her eye, Katina watched as he began to untether his horse from the nearby trees. While it riled her, Santo had a point. She was not the same anymore. Her feelings had been engaged, and her eyes opened. Baroque's bonds fell to the ground. Deborah knelt by his side and began to rub life back into his wrists. Katina worked his gag free. It rested against his neck like a noose. Stefano gazed judgmentally at Katina. "Santo's correct. You've changed. You're too soft." He lingered briefly, as if he had more to say, then joined his partner. Katina quietly released her breath. Shooting Deborah and Alessandro looks of gratitude, she sheathed her dagger and helped Baroque sit up. The marks of their interrogations were livid on his flesh. His lips were cut, his nose broken. One eye was so puffy he must have been barely able to see out of it. His clothes were ruined, and the patches of exposed flesh were a combination of bruises and dirt. It was hard to distinguish which. "Senta, Baroque Scarpoli." She pushed the gag over his head. "This is your last chance. Tell us who you're working for, why you're following Tallow." The spy's one functioning eye twinkled.